Well, Tony Magliano is an internationally syndicated social justice and peace writer. His columns are carried in many diocesan magazines and outlets, and we have him with us on the phone right now. Thanks so much for being with us, Tony.
Well, it's my pleasure, Bishop. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, you're a writer of columns on social justice, movies, March for Life, many other topics relevant to everyday Catholics. What actually got you into this type of work and writing as well?
Well, our boss did, the Holy Spirit. I used to work for Catholic Charities in Wilmington, Delaware, and I was special assistant for public policy. And I eventually worked myself into a way where I could write a column for them on social justice once a month. But then, many years later, I just felt inspired by the Spirit to send the samples of my column off to Catholic News Service. And that was about 18 years ago, and I didn't hear anything, and I called them back, and I sent it to the wrong person, but the person there at CNS, which is the official news agency for the U.S. bishops, as you of course know, I called the wrong person, and he said, no, you need to send it to another guy, and I said to him, well, okay, I'll do that, but what are my chances of getting a column, with not knowing anybody at Catholic News Service? He says, next to impossible. And so that's where the Spirit came in, for sure, and the end of the story is that they accepted me, and I worked for them for 11 years writing columns on social justice and peace, and for the last 7 years I resigned, and I decided I could probably do better with the Spirit's help on my own. So I've been self-syndicating since then.
Great.
Now, Tony, I write a column for a magazine, but they tell me what to write about. How do you determine what topics you're going to tackle?
Well, what I do is I just look at what's in the news, what is timely, either from the church's point of view or secular point of view, or sometimes they both converge very nicely. So whatever is in the news. For instance, my latest column right now is on the Holy Father's message for refugees and the Migrant Day. It's coming up in September. He just released that message, and so I took comments from him, and then I reflected on it, and what we can do about it, how we can be more open to those who are in need, migrants and refugees. So whatever is timely, I write on.
And Tony, there's so many hot button issues in the world today too. And how important is it for us to examine some of these topics from a Catholic lens?
Well, I'm glad you said that because it's extremely important. I think the average person, including the average Catholic, looks at all the issues, everything from abortion to war, from their upbringing, their political persuasion. So either they're coming from I'm liberal, or I'm conservative, or I'm left, or I'm right, or this is how I was brought up. And instead of that, instead of having that kind of almost a knee-jerk reaction, I try to urge Catholics to say, first of all, what does the Gospel say about any topic we're looking at? And the Gospel says a whole lot. And maybe it's not as specific, but that's where Catholic social teaching comes in. Catholic social teaching is the body of documents from mostly the popes, from starting with Rerum Novarum, Pope Leo XIII in 1891, when he wrote the first social encyclical on the condition of labor. He was trying to help Catholics understand that we need to care about those who are working in their unjust conditions in the factories. And so from that document grew, mostly every pope has written one or more documents on the social conditions of our world, everything from abortion to the environment, which is the latest one, Laudato Si, written by Pope Francis on the environment. He's the first pope to write on the environment. And so what I do with my column is I'll bring up whatever the issue is from a secular point of view, give the facts, and then I'll say, this is what the Church is saying about it. And so we should judge the issues based on first and foremost, what does the Gospel say and what does Catholic social teaching say? But that's a problem because most Catholics, I'm sorry to say, don't understand Catholic social teaching. It's been called our best-kept secret. And we have to undo that. And that's what I do in my column. I'll mention something from one of the encyclicals, for instance. This is what one of the popes said about this issue, whether it be abortion or the environment or the economy or peace and war, anything. And I try to get people to say that's how we should be judging the issues. We need to look at all the issues through the lens of the Gospel and Catholic social teaching. And so I hope your viewers will start to get acquainted with Catholic social teaching. And a good place to start is with the document I mentioned, Laudato Si, from Pope Francis on the environment, which is a very, as you say, hot-button issue.
Tony, it's been great to chat with you and learn more about the kind of the background work of a Catholic writer and someone who's been doing it so long and so well as you. I just want to close with a loaded question. What advice would you give to our viewers beyond what you've already said from the perspective of just a Catholic who really cares about the life of the Church going forward?
Thank you. Yes, I would ask every Catholic to please realize that we can make a difference. All of us are called to become saints. The saints were given no more graces than any one of us. It's just that they opened themselves up widely, totally, to God's grace and His will and cooperated fully. I would urge all of us to do that in every aspect of our faith, but specifically regarding meaning that we can make a difference in this world. We have a hurting world. Babies are being aborted, children are starving, wars are being waged right now all around the planet, and it does not have to be. And we are a sleeping giant, actually. If we as a Catholic Church would wake up and demand that everybody who is poor and vulnerable would have their basic needs met, we could change the world. So we are meant to change the world. The bishops said this in 1971 in the World Synod on Justice. They said, action on behalf of justice and participation in the transformation of the world is fully constitutive to the gospel, to the preaching of the gospel. And so we need to make it not extra credit, but front and center. We've changed the world on behalf of those who are suffering and end all wars, and let's work toward peaceful conflict resolution.
Tony, great advice for all of us, particularly as we march into the celebration of the Solemnity of Pentecost. Thank you so much for being with us, and have a fantastic weekend.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Okay.